few months ago, I did a video around the dark details that were left out of the Harry Potter books. Today, we're going to talk about the dark details that didn't make it into the movies instead. So the first one is the death of Moaning Myrtle. So we know in the Chamber of Secrets that Moaning Myrtle was killed by the basilisk, but we find out that she wasn't actually the intended victim in the books, but that is omitted from the movies. Tom Riddle instead uses her death as a cover for the actual murder of a student, which was part of his plan to obviously open the Chamber of Secrets. So that's the first thing that's been left out. Now, I don't think it's that important they left it out. Yes, it does give a bit more of a background to Moaning Myrtle, but it doesn't change the narrative that much. Do I think they should put it in the TV show? If they do, obviously do all the books, as I suspect they are, that's what I've heard. Yes, it would be nice. It just gives that character a bit of building, a bit of a character arc, a bit of, a background. But she's such a small character, really, in comparison to some of the others, that I'm not sure it's that important that we know that. The next one is Voldemort's origins. Now, as you know, I've done a 3-part video series which talks about the rise and the fall of Voldemort from when he was Tom Riddle all the way through to being Voldemort and his second rise of power. So I have spoken a lot about his origins in that, and you do find out about it obviously in the books, but they do keep that out in the movies. Now again, I imagine this is a time constraint thing. Now I'm not sure how important this would be. It's interesting for sure. I think it's something that could be in a TV show. Again, just builds character arcs, gives backgrounds, gives a bit more information to who he was, but is it needed? Do you need to know he came from a line of inbred Slytherins? Do you need to know that his mother fooled his father into loving her the love potion and only released him when she'd had, all that sort of stuff? The only thing it does do is maybe give you an idea as to why Voldemort hates his name so much, his family lineage so much, and the background of him going into care, and the trouble he got into there, that's quite interesting. And again, a lot of this is in the book. Some of it I've just found out through Pottermore and stuff like that. I don't think it needed to be in the movies. I don't think, having any of Voldemort's memories would have really made it any better. Would it have made you sympathise with him or empathise? I don't know. I just don't think it was that important to have. But like I said, I could definitely see it being an episode in a TV series, so maybe they'll do it that way. The next one we're going to look at is the complexity of Snape. So again, I've spoken a bit about Snape before, especially when we talked about the characters that are most hated, and how I kind of don't necessarily agree with why he's on that list. But again, just to reiterate what I was saying at that time, I only really started to like Snape when I found out towards the end what he was actually like and his true intentions. And then when you read through the books again, I didn't have the same view of him. The films obviously hint at the tragic past of how he loved Lily, he found kinship in her, maybe found someone he could actually finally talk to. But you don't really understand the gravity of him being a double agent. You don't understand that internal struggle, because obviously we're just following Harry around in these books. We're not having a deep dive into each character's psyche. You do definitely get more from the books about Snape. Would it be well placed in the movies? I think they did enough to show us where he came from, I guess you could say the bullying of James, which made him resent him. Then he got Lily, got the girl, then he had this son that appeared. I get that, and I think it gave us just enough that when we see that last memory in the film from Snape, you feel for him. So I do get it, and I think they did it well. I don't think they needed to do any more. Again, it will probably well placed in a TV show. I don't think it was needed in the movies. The treatment of house elves was also very much almost ignored in the movies, with the exception of Dobby. but we only get really a snippet of what Dobby goes through. We understand that he obviously is working with someone he doesn't like, but he has this obligation to give this information to Harry and all this sort of stuff, and you know, we see Lucius kick him, and so you do get a bit of it, but obviously in the books you find a lot more out. Obviously Hermione has her spew campaign, and that's quite a big part of that book, I found. Not my favourite part of the book. I don't know, maybe if I read it now I might like it more. I do need to reread them as a even older adult than I was when I read them last, and maybe I'll have a different view. But one thing I would have loved to have seen is Winky. So Winky was Bartimaeus Crouch's house elf, and when the Quidditch World Cup is on, in the books she is up in the stands saving a seat, and she's terrified of heights. She's shaking. She is caught with a wand, which I think Barty Crouch Jr. gave her. I think he put her under some sort of Imperius curse or something. And then when she's finally, well, I say freed, when Barty Crouch dies, Junior has been arrested and she's taken to Hogwarts working in the kitchen with Dobby. Dobby can't understand why she is so upset. And they were both mistreated in different ways, but Winky almost couldn't understand why this was happening to her now, because she loved her master, whereas Dobby hated it. I think Winky definitely saw being in the kitchens as more of a punishment than being a house elf. Now, I would have just loved just to see a little bit more of Winky. I don't think she was in the books excessively. That would have been hard to put her into the movies. But just having that little bit more of understanding around house elves would have been great. I don't think Kreacher can really be used as an example here, because he was just as, I don't know the word, but he just was just as nasty, I guess, as Bellatrix. So I don't know. Again, we don't know much about him though. So one really interesting thing, which is completely left out of the movies, is what happens to the Dursleys. So in the book we get a lot more closure regarding Harry's relationship with them, but after Voldemort is defeated, Harry finds out that the Dursleys were forced into hiding and they're terrified, but we don't really get that they were left in a state of fear in the films. It's just very much we see them leaving and that is it. It's just like they're forgotten. Now, I have read canon that people say that, you know, it would be great to think that Harry and Dudley met up. Dudley's got kids now. He and Harry are trying to have some sort of relationship, and he apologises for how he treated him. Just a little side note, behaviour breeds behaviour. I think I said this about Lucius and Draco. Very much the same with Vernon and Dudley. I don't think we can blame Dudley necessarily for his actions, because that's how he was brought up to be. But it would have been nice to have a bit more closure, but appreciate, again, in a movie, I don't know if you can, maybe in the TV show we can have some sort of closure, and we'll get to see this sort of I guess resolution for Harry, the respect that he deserves, maybe. One other thing, so we've got a couple more I just want to go through. Now, the first one is Cedric Diggory's death. Now, in the films, as you know, it's just very quick. And then when Harry takes the body back, you see his dad, and it's heartbreaking. It's very, very sad. The older I get, the sadder I find that scene. But it is very much done. And there is no aftermath. But in the books, it is a lot darker. So his death is more brutal. And Harry's trauma from witnessing it is a lot more pronounced. Very important. And I know you do see a little bit where Dudley taunts him for speaking in his sleep and stuff like that. But we experience a lot more of it through the books. The other thing as well is that the grief that Cedric's parents have, and the Ministry's refusal to completely acknowledge that Voldemort's even returned, is explored a lot more. And again, I get with all of these why we don't have as much information. It's not as in-depth as we'd love it to be. I get that. but it would have just been nice to have a little bit more to it, even just pay homage to the character. Maybe I'm asking for too much. I would literally sit and watch a 4-hour film. I've done it with Lord of the Rings in the extended version. Happy to do that. Would have loved to have it like this with Harry Potter, where there was just so much explored and answered. So the last one we're just going to look at is how Voldemort returns. So in the books, Voldemort returning is a lot more unsettling than we're shown in the movies. So the movies focus largely on the spectacle of his return, but the books explore more the horror and the disillusionment that the Wizarding world have as people come to terms with his power and realising that he is actually back. People are no longer safe. The scenes as well surrounding his resurrection in the book are a lot darker than they are in the films. Okay, so they're all the points I wanted to bring up around things that were left out of the films that are much darker in the books. However, as I said when I did the Hunger Games one, I know that this is aimed at kids / preteens. I get that. I don't need to be told. However, if I could have had an extended version, like I said, which had these darker scenes in, I would have loved it. I also appreciate that you can't have everything, every page from the book cannot be included. I'm not asking for that. I would just like, and my hopes for the TV show are that it is a bit more, I think adult is the wrong word, but it does maybe show a bit more the severity of some of these things. Harry's trauma, Snape's internal conflict, maybe a bit more around the house elves. All this stuff, just little bits would have been great. I'm not, like I said, I'm not asking for everything. I just would have been great to have a little bit more. But like I said, I know these are kids' films. I'm not asking for some sort of Battle Royale type movie. But that's everything for today's video, guys. I just wanted to go through some of the things that have been left out of the movies that are in the books, as I had obviously done one like this for Hunger Games, and I'd done things that they hadn't explored as much in the books for Harry Potter before. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there's anything that was in the books that was particularly dark that you think would have been cool to have in the movies, or things that maybe they added in that you don't think they should have. Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming out this year. Like the video if you did, and until next time, you take care.